Hi, it's the Audio Opinator. I am still starting out, so I guess an introduction would be a good way to get started. A little bit about me and my history. My name's Dustin. I'm from Oklahoma, but I live now in Portland, Oregon. And I have been a music fan my whole life. It was something that um, I always needed around me, even, you know, 10 years old. I just had to have the music on. I think it helps me relax. Um, so, I've been to a lot of concerts and stuff growing up. Never really got into hardware um, till maybe 2003 ish. The home theater thing was going crazy, so bought a Marantz SR 8002 and a set of DefTech Pro Tower 400s, and tried to get it set up for the family, in which they weren't into it at all. And then slowly I was getting out of watching TV, watching movies, and to a point now where I'm just all music all the time. No, I don't really listen to music. I don't really watch movies or TV. I did watch a movie about Bob Dylan on the flight on Wednesday. That was fun. But anyway, I went with that system for a good almost 20 years, maybe 15. In about 2012, a friend of mine at work gave me a Pioneer turntable that he wasn't using, and I had a old Sony that my stepfather had given me. It was a Sony, what was it, STR. I've got stuff down here, so I'm going to be looking at my notes. I apologize. Sony STR 880. It was a pretty good model for him. He had it for 20 years before he gave it to me. But it was real early home theater technology. It wasn't as good as my Marantz, so I took my turntable and that Sony, since it had a phono input, and put it up in my office, and I would, listen to some records here and there. We went pretty slow in the beginning. I only had a few records, but over time, I started enjoying looking for records. So yeah, I was collecting more and more records, and I got a pretty decent collection going. And the room behind me for a long time was a kids' playroom. It had basically a pile 3 feet high of toys that we used to have to had a pile of toys real high. We had the IKEA shelves full of them. No real furniture. And so when they got older, finally I could take the room back for myself. And so I started moving some of my stereo stuff down here, trying out some different ways to listen to music in here. I started out on this wall over here where the IKEA shelves were, and yeah, it didn't really work. Plus with the fireplace on this side, it was kind of stupid. So I tried with the stereo in the back, but with this sliding glass door there, it really doesn't work. It's hard to work around that door. So I did end up over here, which kind of done different things, like the stereo rack. I've had it in the corner just so I can leave the fireplace open, because the fireplace is nice in the winter, of course. Springtime now, almost summer, so I'm taking that space back. And so yeah, I put in a TV. But anyway, it's been a long trip. I have been through a bunch of equipment since then. I started out with turntable and stereo down there. Started out with a Pioneer. I can't remember what the Pioneer was, direct drive, something like that. And then I picked up a Sanyo TP 1030, which was decent, pretty decent, better, a step up from the Pioneer. I still have that Pioneer. I have it at a friend's house. He's borrowing it. And then I went up to another Pioneer PL510. That was even better. I really like that Pioneer, and I still have that one as well. And then um, from there, I went to a music hall MMF 5.3, which is, it was a big leap for me. And then I put work into it because it had grounding issues, and so I put Cardus tone arm wiring in it. I put a Hana ML cartridge on it, so it was pretty decent. And then as far as system, like I've messed with tape. I've had an Akai CS703D, which was fun to play with. I want to get another one of those. They're the classic silver face cassette player. I've had 8 tracks. I've had reel-to-reel. Had a decent teak I picked up at an estate sale. It played, but they all need work. They're from the late 60s, most of them early 70s, so they're not great. I've had CD players. I've had a Denon player. It was a pro player, so it was kind of fun. You could do samples and cue up stuff. It was kind of neat to play with. I got it from a guy who had I guess he did some entertainment, stuff. So he had those CD things there. I have a Sony 5-disc SACD player that's pretty decent. It has a matching integrated amp. I forget, it's the champagne colored top of the line Sony from like 2002 or something like that. It's okay. It sounds like it's 23 years old now. A little bit of background noise on that one, but it's good for a garage system. So got that going out there. I also have a 200 CD. I want to say it's a Pioneer 200 CD cassette, like one of those rotisserie ones. It's fun. I have a bunch of my spare CDs in there, so I just turn that on when I'm working in the garage. As far as, let's see, and then for preamps, I started with, what did I start with? Oh, I started with the Schiit Freya Plus. That was a great little preamp because it allowed you to test between 3 different modes of preamp. So you could have a passive preamp, which basically acts like a straight line that you can adjust the volume up and down from your source. So, and then you can have an active preamp that takes that signal and it boosts it a little bit in certain areas and does some magic to it to make it sound a little better. And then there's tube, which does its own style of magic. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun to play with, but ultimately it wasn't the sound I liked. So I went from there to a Peachtree Nova Pre, which also is tube, but the tube on that is in the power supply for the Pre. I thought it was a much better sounding Pre for what I like. It was just a little bit more bright. They say I think it's a little more brilliant. Some people don't like that. I do a lot. So that's kind of why I gravitated that way. The Schiit was a little too neutral, and also during that time I had a PS Audio preamp that I got pretty cheap. It also at that time was way too neutral for me. I didn't care for it. So I sold it about 2 months after I got it to a guy pulled up in front of my house in I think he had a Lamborghini. He said he just wanted to buy it and test some speakers out and probably throw it out. So yeah, hope it worked for him. After that, I picked up a Rogue Audio RP1, which really worked nice for me. I had that one for a while. The nice thing about it is it had a pretty decent phono stage in it, so you could hook your record players to it. That was what I used mainly with the Magic Music Hall MMF 5.3. As far as DACs, in my experience, I had a Denafrips Aries 2 for a good long time. It was my first DAC I bought, and what a great amp. I mean, sorry, what a great DAC. I still miss it, honestly, but when I sold my Rogue Audio, I got an Eversolo, which is a preamp and also a DAC. So I didn't need the Denafrips anymore, so I sold it to raise funds for other things and speakers. As far as I didn't finish the CDs. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to bear with me on ADHD. I had a Marantz SA15S SA CD player that I bought from Japan, but unfortunately when it arrived it wouldn't play regular CDs, only SA CDs. So yeah, I ended up sending that off to someone to see if they could fix it. It got dropped on the way and damaged, but it started working. So that person, who's a good friend of mine in Chicago, shout out Chris, he had it for a while, and then he had some other things he wanted, so he sent that off to somebody else. I'm sorry, I've lost track of where it's at now. But after I got my money back from that one, I got the current one I have, which is a Esoteric. It's an Esoteric DV50 SACD player, and it's from like 2005ish, and it's a beast. It's just like, and that thing almost weighs 50 pounds. And you don't see that in CD players much, but it plays beautifully. I run that from the Esoteric to the Soul Note amp with balanced, and it's quite nice. But I also, that one's nice because I can send it out to the DAC, which I do, and I also send it out to the Weem, because the Weem has DSP, and I can play with that DSP, and those DSPs always get me. I love to play with them. Where were we? Okay, so that's CDs. I went through CDs, I went through tape, I went through pre, I went through okay, so let's go with streamers. I've started with just your PC. I just had that PC down here, which I don't know if you can hear my oven running, but I'm getting ready to try and make some bread. But that's what my PC sounded like in here. It's just constant fan running, so I hated it. I went from there. I built some Raspberry projects for a DAC and streamer through the times, and I'm a Linux fan. I run it on my computers, but I didn't care for it as a streamer DAC setup. So eventually I got the Eversolo, and I haven't looked back. I won't have anything like that. Raspberry or PC again. This Weem Ultra I have now I got it for $270 on a sale, and it's great. It works great. It's very functional, and I don't think that I don't know, it's gonna be tough to replace with such a good deal like that. I mean, the jump from here is expensive. I'll probably be looking at a lot more money, and I don't know if I want to do it. Anyway, back to speakers. So from the that was everything there. Yeah, that's basically where I am now. I'm at the Ultra, so you caught up on streamers. So we'll go to speakers. Like I said, I started out with Deftex, and I'm sorry, I've got a long list here, and I'll probably get them out of order, but I bought a set of Fisher 777s from a friend of mine. Hey Sean. He got them from a guy that bought them in Japan on his trip back from Vietnam. That's that story, which that story on some equipment is always fun to think about when you're listening to your favorite music, I think. So I would love to get a hold of my uncle's system. It's in Oklahoma. He did the same thing when he came out of Vietnam, but we'll see if the family will let me someday. And then moving on from there, I also had back then. I had some Mission bookshelves that I bought off a lady, and I had them up here on top of my hutch for a long time, at least 10 years, hooked up to the stereo in the living room, that Marantz, and I just run it off the B side so I could turn it on and off as needed to listen to music while I cooked, and I always enjoyed that. They sound pretty good, you know. They're only about this big, but they put out big sound. Um, I what really set me off were a couple things that my friends and coworkers did. Were one, I already told you about the Pioneer um, turntable that I was given. That started it all. But two, a friend of mine named Rob I work with was a longtime audiophile, and when he was in the Navy, and maybe in his early 20s, he bought himself a set of Infinity RS2s, and he had them up until, I don't remember when he sold them to me, but it was like 2020 or 19, maybe 18, 19, somewhere in there. And like that was pretty revolutionary for me because they sounded unlike anything I had ever heard. And it was mainly due to the tweeters on them are dipole, so it's open baffle and it plays both directions at once. So that has a certain sound, and it's really something that kind of I love. So that got me going. So after I got those speakers, I kind of started trying to get more, right? Because I love those speakers, but my wife did not at all. So I couldn't bring those things in here. They're like doors, basically. They're giant, 4 foot high, almost 3 feet, well, two plus feet wide, big planks with big speakers going up, and she wasn't into it. And honestly, after I tried them in here when she wasn't around, I was like, yeah, that's not working. It didn't sound that great in here. It sounded better in the garage, honestly. So I ended up selling those to raise money. It's this trip has been something that has just focused everything I've had from my life, like all my old toys, my bass amp, I sold that, guns and stuff like that. Just anything I just held on to from the past that I didn't really use anymore. I was selling all that to raise money, and then I'd buy things and fix them, or I'd find a good deal and sell it for what it's really worth, and kind of flipping things, making a little bit here, a little bit there, and just kind of using that money to build my way up through this. So I didn't pay for all this stuff. What I do is I buy and I sell. So if you're working the used market, you can really get through this trip pretty easily, saving $1,500 a month or every other month, whatever. Just build it up slow and make smart choices. I have been hyper focused on everything stereo related since 2019. Back to speakers though. So after that, those are Infinity RS2s. It's really set me off. So I got some. I got some Martin Logan. Oh, another good friend of mine, hi John, gave me a set of his bookshelves when I couldn't bring in those Infinities. So he gave me a set of I want to say Martin Logan's 35 XTs. They're just like rear channel home entertainment system speakers, and they were great for a while I kind of built up my resources and did my research. And I ended up going to Best Buy and getting a set from them of Wharfdales. I don't remember what they are. I didn't keep them because they were real, like open box and just bottom of the line, just worse they had. So they weren't much better than what my friend John had given me. And so I picked up a set of Wharfdale 7.1 Pros, and those were good. They lasted me a little bit. And then I had some Martin Logans as well, kind of in the same price range. They were okay as well. Um, so from there, I went to the Tecton impact monitors, and if you know Tecton, they're the ones that make kind of an array of tweeters around that. Um, it's a tweeter sound, right? You know, it's high sound, but they also use the tweeters together synchronously to make a mid-range sound, which is kind of interesting if you can get a chance to hear some. They were decent. They're not really. They were kind of a side project, I think, for Tecton. I don't think they were meant to be center channels, honestly. So somebody had bought 2 of them to use them in a speaker setup. They were pretty good. I probably won't get any more Tecton though. Odd story about those. They were serial number 1 and 2. That was fun. Anyway, from there I went to some Zoo Dirty Weekend Mark IIs with clarity cap upgrade and everything, and I was super happy with those for a long time. Although one thing that didn't work for me was that they would have trouble at volumes where if I had people over and we're getting crazy, it just fall apart. It just couldn't handle it. But normal everyday sounds, it was real good, and I really enjoyed the coax speaker on that. So thumbs up to the Zoos. And then from the Zoos I went to DIY versions of my speakers, and I had an earlier version of these that were my speaker guy, box maker at that time, and I discussed it, and I was making the box for one speaker like that, but he thought I was making a sub. So he made it big for a sub, as it should be, and we didn't talk well enough about it until it showed up, and I'm like, oh, okay, we'll give it a shot, So, but honestly, it sounded great. I got rave reviews from everybody that heard them. So I definitely felt good about the speakers I had. So I ended up talking to another friend of mine, and you see this is quite a big difference. This is Jason's work. He's a luthier and high-level woodworker artist, right? So it's cool to know someone like that, but it's even more cool when you can trick them into making his speakers. Oh, I love this guy. He made dreams come true for me, but and I did pay, don't worry, a little bit. But yeah, so that's the current version I'm on. For these, I never heard, the thing that started me with these was the ESS tweeter, right? I'd heard about it, never heard them, but then there was a sale and it was like $250 for a set of them. I'm like, okay, it's on. So I got a set of those, and I had been in love with the Purify drivers for a while because they're just, to me, they have really just great performing sound, really brilliant, just fast acting, detailed speakers. So I thought they'd match up well with the ESS. So that's what led me into this. I built these speakers, and the crossover range on these is like the ESS will go down, they say, to 800. Beyond that, they'll get damaged, so you need to cut them off. And then the Purify will go up to about 3,000, but you're pushing it pretty bad there. So I did some testing between 1 and 2K with the crossovers in those. So I did 1 and 1.5K crossover points on a crossover I built, and then a 2K, and then just comparing them, the horns just kept getting better and better as I went up to 2K. I think the Purify handles the lower female vocals and male vocals and horns and all that are in that 2K down range, and it sounded hollow on the ESS. I don't recommend it, honestly. I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you want to. So that's where I am with that. As far as amps, like I said, I started with the Marantz. I had a couple. I had another Marantz that was like a integrated amp, 22 32, which was junk. Basically, I think I threw it out. I got it off like Craigslist for like 30 bucks. But anyway, moving on from that. Another one that got me going early was a receiver called the Carver, and it's made by Carver, which he didn't really give it a model name. He just called it the Carver. You know, it's like the signature model. Picked that up at that estate sale I had mentioned earlier, and it sounded great, especially on those Infinity speakers. That was a good match. Just that Carver is 150 watts per channel, and it could really drive those Infinities. They need power. They need a lot of power. So it was a really good match, and so that got my blood going. Right, I found another one of those Carvers, because this one I got at that estate sale was like the plastic was all dried out and crumbly. Right, it was just like it had been in the desert for 100 years. You push a button and it just break. So I bought another one. It was in a little bit better shape, and I got it going, and it lasted for a little bit, but you know, basically it fell apart too. So, you know, it's good and bad. I like the sound, but I don't like it when it falls apart, right? So, from there, I have also had my first kind of big amps I bought myself were mono blocks from Orchard Audio Star Crimsons, and they were also 150 watts per channel. They're tiny. They're like this big. But man, they're great amps. I had that was my first like big boy amp I bought myself, and I kept that for one of the longest periods of all the stuff I have here. But yeah, I was on to bigger things at some point. I've also had a Prima Luna tube amp, which was decent, but you know, it helped me figure out I'm kind of not a tube guy. So I also at that time had a Bryson. The Bryson 4B ST was what I replaced the Orchard with. I should have said that earlier. So I was kind of trying between the Prima Luna and the Bryson, and you know, I'm more of a solid state person. So a friend of mine from some Discords I'm on is a dealer that's up in Vancouver, Washington. They're called Unveiled Audio, and Jonathan from there told me about a good deal on this Soul Note that I have now. It's an A2, and there's not a lot of information about those here in America. They're pretty cult status in Japan. They kind of swing up towards Accuphase competition, so they're not cheap. But this one is one model they were finishing, and they're going to be doing a different setup on their integrateds going forward. So this was getting discounted pretty well, and then with the tariffs coming in, I was afraid things were getting ready to go real expensive. So I made the leap, thanks to my wife for letting me do that. Mostly from the equipment that I had been acquiring, paid for most, you know, like 80% of it. So it was, we just threw a little bit more money on it, and now I have it. It's nice. So that's kind of where I am now. I feel like I'm going to be settled pretty good on this going forward. No real weaknesses. I've gotten rid of the turntable. I got rid of my vinyl. I sold it all off about a year ago and went full-time SACD and CD player. I also have a CD server that I've been building. I started that. It went after actually a little bit before COVID started. I started doing that. I had a pretty decent collection of mine, and then I have, you know, being a music person, I've made great music friends. So I would go to them and say, hey, you know, you should back up your CDs because they have a chance of failure now as they get older. So I started creating a CD server for backups of CDs, and then I can run that now through here. I use Rune. It's a great system. I stream through Qobuz and YouTube Play. So I enjoy watching videos. So, you know, I was a teenager when MTV was great. So uh, I used to have friends over watch videos. You know, as a kid, I still like to do it now. But YouTube's not super high fidelity, so that's not like if we have the audio folks over, we don't do that. But you know, friends and family and stuff. So yeah, I think that's where I am now. My audio server now of CDs is coming up on 2.5 tour of, not tour. That's oh my gosh, 2.5 terabytes. Sorry, that's a different measurement. Some of you may know what that is. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now, who I am, what I've been up to, and now here we are. The sickness has grown. I have a channel where I'll be talking about audio, maybe. So appreciate your attention to this point. It's been a long video. Please like and subscribe.